Good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Games Club review of Titanfall 2. Guys, we did really well this time. It's been, I think, almost less than a month since our last Games Club review. We're like ahead of the curve.
Cutting edge, even.
I am joined by several familiar faces. I don't think we've got anybody new, just some old friends here. We've got Goose down there at the end.
Quack.
Parias is there as well.
Well, hello.
Jesters is here.
Hello.
Bjorn.
That's me.
And finally, Graves. All right, so the Games Club is back. We played Titanfall 2, and Goose is going to tell us a little bit about it. Goose, take it away.
Cool. All right. So Titanfall 2 is I won't say critically acclaimed sequel, but it is the much improved sequel to Titanfall 1, which was a multiplayer only version of a game. It was the first game by Respawn Entertainment. Originally released the first one in 2014, this most recent version in 2016. Respawn's currently famous for being the surprise producers of Apex Legends, which literally came out of nowhere. And if you played Titanfall 2, it was very, very familiar to you because they basically took all the same assets and made them into a new game. It came out on PC, Xbox One, and PS4, and it is very much so a first-person shooter. All in all, it's quite a fun game, I think. We'll go over just a couple basic items about the game. So you play as Rifleman Jack. I didn't bother remembering his last name.
Cooper.
It really wasn't
Rifleman
Cooper.
Jack Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Rifleman Jack Cooper. The guy who, through no misfortune of his own, ends up on some scary planet because reasons for plot.
Yeah.
And they have to stop the bad guys from using some Deus Ex Machina to blow up the planet. So, of course, he finds himself in the way of being a new pilot captain, or pilot, I guess, or Titan pilot, there we go. And ends up having to travel across this whole country or planet in order to find his squad mates and
It's a little bit of both.
figure out all the background and, yeah, do
Hey,
that
guys,
stuff. Save the day.
I want to lay it out here that Goose actually did a pretty good job of describing the story. That's about as deep as it goes.
There's not much to scratch here. Like, I'm scraping the barrel.
Yeah, but I thought the interesting thing about this was it was exponentially different from the first Titanfall, because the first Titanfall, like you mentioned, Goose, was completely multiplayer. Like, the campaign is played in multiplayer games.
Yeah, and you
that-
play both sides, I think, in that, don't you?
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a very unique experience that I'm not sure if I'm upset that they didn't bring it back for the second one, because, you know, the campaign in the first one was so different from anything else we'd done. But I think we'll get a little bit into the fun and the elements of Titanfall 2, and we won't get stuck up on Titanfall 1.
I feel like that campaign was really just to familiarize yourself with the abilities and stuff because it's such a different combat system,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's almost like
or mobility
two
system,
games.
rather.
In
It's
some
short
way.
enough. It's short enough to where you could say that. But
So obviously the driving factor behind Titanfall and kind of the base of this environment is the set of Titans. So these Titans are giant AI. You know, they have their own thought process, and they get paired with a pilot, which in this case comes to be Jack Cooper, our main character. Each of the Titans is a little bit different, which kind of gives you almost a class system. You've got some that are more snipers, some that are more aerial, some that are giant machine gun or flamethrower wielding brutes. So I thought that was a cool thing to see them bring back and have the different classes of Titans. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but you could actually go back and select your Titan loadout. So while it encouraged you to play the latest and greatest as you explored through the game and saw the different Titans, you could actually select which one you wanted. Um, I didn't personally do that. I just kind of went with what was going on and rolled along with that. But the Titans themselves, obviously, a huge part of Titanfall, and one of the main drivers of the story. Your Titan buddy, BT, is a hilarious character. There's a lot of really silly Portal-esque, dry humor one-liners that every single time I came across one, it gave me a good chuckle.
I thought of it more as like a buddy cop video game almost. Like you have your good guy, like I'm in this situation, I didn't want to be here, and you have his straight laced, like everything you say, I'm going to take 110% seriously and 100% literally. Just like it's like watching Rush Hour for the first time a little bit. You're just like Jackie Chan's going to take everything 100% seriously, and Chris Tucker's just over here cracking jokes left and right.
It is very true. Actually, I have a clip that we'll get to in a second that kind of goes through some interactions as well as some combat. But let's talk a little bit about the gameplay of Titanfall 2. Who wants to jump in and give their take on the gameplay and what they liked the most about it?
Well, Titanfall 2 takes a lot of what you expect from a first-person shooter and adds in a very, if not unique, uncommon kind of movement. You spend a lot of time wall running and otherwise just moving very fast through the terrain.
And actually, here I've got a clip that demonstrates this. This is from, I think, Goose's playthrough. So you can see here he's doing some wall running. He goes invisible, comes up on this guy, and then performs one of the more brutal executions on him. And I think that, Cody, you're right in saying that the almost free running aspect makes this game completely different from every other first person shooter, because this is almost like playing Mirror's Edge, but with guns.
But yeah.
So I thought that alone, and that was pretty apparent in the first one as well. The first Titanfall was very big on their movement scheme. I would have loved to spend some time playing multiplayer on this game just to like see how good some people are with the wall running and stuff, because at the very beginning of the game you actually start with it's a gauntlet, right? It's like a practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
The pilot's gauntlet.
Yeah, and the achievement to like, you know, the score to beat, just for like the achievement, right? So what the game designers think that you should be able to do, it might be a little challenging, but should be possible, was like 10 seconds faster than I could ever achieve. And I was like, I thought I was getting into it and doing pretty well. So there's definitely room for perfecting like the craft of speedrunning in this game. And I think that what's the record for speedrunning? I think we looked it up.
I want to say it's like 12 seconds.
No, not the gauntlet. The whole game.
The entire game. Yeah.
Oh, the
No,
entire.
it's 12 seconds.
It would be
I don't think it's
very,
quite that
very.
fast. I think it's about 3.5 hours, according to how long to beat.
Yeah, and that's just constant clip, wall running, cloaking, you know, playing the quick game. And I really thought it would be fun to do like a pacifist run through of this game, because you could literally, I mean, you could do it in 4 or 5 hours if you weren't an experienced speedrunner.
1 hour 37.
There you go.
56 minutes.
There you go. That sounds a little bit more correct. Yeah, under an hour to beat the whole game, which I'm sure that's going to come up again later as we get into the actual review section of it.
That is insane.
I'm sure that's probably including all hacks and skips and stuff.
That may be like an
80%. That's any percent.
Yeah, any percent.
So obviously the background for this game being on kind of a futuristic alien world gives a lot of opportunities for beautiful terrain and really interesting level design. There were a couple times where I would stop and look out at the map as I was running across it, and the only thing that I don't like about it, which is also something that I do like about it, is that the free running elements of like wall running and jumping and stuff are built into the terrain, and it's pretty seamless, but you can still look at it and be like, oh, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. It was both a blessing and a curse, I think, having like the cliffs be sheer enough and like worn down in specific spots that it's like, okay, I'm gonna jump here and there, and it was helpful from like a gameplay perspective, but it did take a little bit, I thought, out of the whole like terrain experience, which is why I preferred some of these lab levels like what I've got up here. And that's not just because of like the man-made structures kind of lent themselves better to hiding those wall running spots, but also you get a really fun toy in this level that we have shown. And I want to talk about that next, if that's okay with you guys, because it's a defining characteristic of this game. All right, so this level, I think that the name of this level is Effect and Cause, which is a fun play on cause and effect, because you're basically playing 2 levels at once. You're playing the current state and you're playing the past, right? It's not future and present, it's present and past. Yeah.
The current state is the just degraded one, and then in the past is when it was all shiny and new.
Yeah, exactly. And you're doing this with the help of a device that you take off of one of your fellow members. It's basically the whole reason you're on this planet to begin with, and why the campaign starts is you're sent down to investigate what happened to the team that went in. And they have this device that allows them to basically jump forward and backwards through time care of the arc. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a energy source called the arc, which has been harnessed. This is something that I felt was a little bit confusing in the actual exposition of how it works. But you find this device which allows you to shift forward and backwards through time. So you can see here's a clip of me running through this hallway in the past. It's nice, shiny, and new. There's a bunch of enemies there. In the present, everything's broken. There's fire everywhere. I guess this fire has been raging for however long. But,
Infinite fire.
yeah, it's really burning. It's a slow burn. But this led for some really cool combat and mechanics.
And killing yourself.
And killing yourself, yeah, yep. So this is me kind of phasing back and forth. I go to the...
Trying to find the safe one.
Yeah, I go to the present to like reload, and come back in, and I shoot these guys, back to the past for the present.
That room specifically, I ran back in there and time shifted and killed myself.
Yeah, right in the fire.
Yeah, because I forgot that there was fire there.
Yeah, and I think I've got one more the end of this level. So this time shifting itself made for a really cool gameplay mechanic, but at the end of this level, your device gets broken.
That's when magic happens.
Yeah, and you
Boo.
come into this scene, and
pretty
this
cool.
scene for me was like a defining point of the game, because this was just so cool to be walking through this visually stunning, frozen time experience, and like riding the zip line up and then wall running through it. I just thought this was something I'd never seen before in a game that, despite little exposition of how we actually got here and how it's possible, worked out really well.
Why
It
was
just
this
really
game
cool.
not talked about?
It is a very stunning game.
Yes.
Beautiful.
You might. Yeah, my biggest disappointment here is once you get done with this, you are basically done with all time travel and everything to do with it. It was like, I don't know, it just seemed to like, they put it in the middle of the game, and it seems like it's a big part of the game, and then all of a sudden, nope, no, you don't get to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
We'll just forget we ever had this level.
And that was we said earlier this is a defining like characteristic of the game, but you're absolutely right, Graves. This is in one level of I think the 12 levels of the game.
They don't even they don't even introduce anything else to take its place. Like
Arguably, I'd say
no
it's
different
fair.
mechanic.
I think it's fair they take it away just because you are so overpowered, and it gives you such a strength. Like, if you listen to the audio logs as you're playing through Effect and Cause, there's an audio log from before you get to the room with the elevators and all those weird monsters when you're flipping between the two levels, and it's one of the guards, and you can hear the audio of them screaming, like, he's here, he's not there, he's killing all of us. And they're just like, what is going on? Like, what's happening to these guys? They're getting just devastated by some monster,
Yeah.
it sounds like. And you find out it's actually you did all of that, and it's so cool when you make the connection. You're just like, oh, this is the elevator room. I just killed all those guys. That's why that audio log exists.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with them actually taking it away. I just have a problem with the fact that it was like introduced and then not touched on the rest of the game, and they don't really give you another really cool mechanic in any other level like that. So it's like, I don't know, it just seems like a weird niche that they added in, and then it's like, now we're going back to the old style of gameplay.
I agree in that I would have loved to keep playing with it. Like, I was just getting into the flow of shifting back and forth, especially when you had enemies in both the present and the past.
Yeah.
Like, managing those, because you can kind of see, like, shadows of where the enemies were, or, like, light sources. To give you an
They would
idea.
dissipate.
Yeah, and that was just such a cool idea, and I really want to know. I don't think that it is in the multiplayer element, but I would love to see a gun battle with two people who both had this fighting each other. Because like being
I was thinking like a boss fight or something.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
That would have
That
been
actually
really
would have been awesome. If you had to jump back and forth to kill someone, it's like, oh, you're also able to do this. That would have been insane.
Can you imagine playing Capture the Flag? Oh, thanks for the follow.
Oh,
no,
God.
that was the sub. Thanks for the sub, Carson. Yeah, can you imagine playing like Capture the Flag, going back and forth, and like, you're trying to call it where the flag carrier is, and he's like, oh, he's on the right hand side of the map, but he's in the past. No, wait, he's in the future. No, wait, he's here. And like shifting back and forth, especially if there were like 3 different modes. Oh, it'd be insane. And that seems like it would be so much fun as like a game mode. So
yeah, no, they definitely hit on something there. that they could almost spin off into its own game.
I honestly, I hope
But-
somebody, and this is the biggest fear that I have. I hope somebody plays this, which is a fear because I had heard briefly about this game. This game came out in 2016. I heard a little bit of buzz about it, and it disappeared.
Yep.
A couple of you guys played it, and that's how we had it recommended to us as a game of the month. But this game was like so poorly advertised. I had no idea it was coming. I think it came out around the same time as one of the other shooter games, like one of the modern Call of Duties or
Modern Warfare, I think.
yeah, and it seems like no one talked about it. And when I went back and played this, I was like, this is a phenomenal game. How did nobody talk about this? Because it seems like it's got a really cool experience to give.
I think one of the things that really stands out though is not only is it's mechanically like the game is fun, it's fluid, it moves really smoothly, but it has really interesting, unique level design. I mean, you have the maps where you're jumping back and forth across time. You have a map where you're literally building the area you're going to be fighting in as you're moving through it. You're like moving through this giant machine, and it's just like you can tell they put a lot of thought and effort into the environments they use, and it works so well with the mechanics and the tools they equip you with, and it plays so fluidly because of that.
Yeah, they had really nice level design, even if the level design seemed very just kind of took you out of, like, they seemed disjointed a little bit. Like, I didn't understand why we were in certain locations and why they had those specific locations on this world. It just seemed a little strange. Like that whole level, that whole manufacturing plant where they were making the level that you were on. It's like, so we went through this entire giant complex for them to make one little room for us to fight in? And what do they do with it? Like, why is it here?
Yeah, so actually,
it was a very cool level. Like, I really liked the level. I thought it was awesome. But some of this stuff seemed a little disjointed and took me out of the world I was in.
That level had a really Portal vibe.
oh yeah, totally. And
Just
I'm
making the room for test and shit.
I don't have
Yes.
I don't have a clip already ready, but let me get to the part where I really wanted to talk about for that level because it was such a cool experience that I also found incredibly frustrating. Here we go, I got it. All right, so this is gonna be. Let me throw this up here. Full screen it, make sure it's showing up perfect. Yeah, so this is the level we're talking about. This is what I was thinking was going on. We're in some sort of complex where they're building test scenarios that they then like run their robots against to like perfect them. I think that was what I was getting as the vibe from this experience. If anybody knows exactly what was happening,
That's what
throw
I
it out
thought
there.
too.
But that's what
Yeah.
I was getting. So we're
That's
in
what I
this.
thought.
Sort of, yeah.
That's the vibe I got.
Yeah. So this part right here where everything is turned on its side, my brain just like could not handle the platforming. So you're gonna see me fail a jump here that I think I spent a good like 3 to 5 minutes trying to figure out. Cause just this right here, like wall running on the ground and then running up this thing, I I I can't do it. My brain just won't allow me to like. It even hurts now just watching this. Like I just fall off the side
Yeah,
of something that I feel like I should.
This part is the part I had issues with.
I think it's worse looking at it when you're not controlling it, because right now it's getting me a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the same issue. It's like I had to like tilt my head to the side and slowly like rotate it till I kind of figured it out until my mind kind of clicked with it. But yeah, this part's just like right here. This
You
was
also
the
went
worst part
hardest
for me.
way too, because you could just go up the crane arm, which is
Oh,
what I did.
God.
And you literally walk right up. That's why you walk on the crane arm.
See, I'm like,
You're
I'm
literally
like
trying to make
here.
this as hard as possible.
I'm like, yeah. What do I do? Like, how do I make this work? Because as
You
soon
just
as
go
you
there.
see a spot to land that's flat, your brain tells you, nope, that's the wall. You can't stand on that. You've got to run on it.
Yeah.
And then my brain's like,
Yeah,
but
I know.
I want to go to the street. I'm gonna go to the right here where I can stand. And then you see me just fall down. So this was super trippy and cool. And then when I was playing this, I can't believe I didn't have a clip ready because when I was playing this, I was like, this is worth talking about. Like this is a super unique, messes with your head experience. And I just keep failing.
There's a lot of those in there, I feel.
There are a lot of really cool things in this game that are like that. And my fear is that people are gonna miss it because they didn't do a good job of putting the game out there. So I'll
People
talk
did
about
miss
that
it.
again. Yeah, when I get into my review. But let me skip just a little bit ahead here to the culmination of this, right? So
See that big blue crane? You could just walk right up it. There we go.
Yeah, so this is the end of the level where they put all of these pieces together and put them flat, and they make these buildings appear, and then they dump in a bunch of robots and captured like prisoners, and then they fight, and you have to try and like survive and escape. So I thought this was pretty neat, especially because I recently got a VR headset. So like sitting in here and like having the ceiling of this fake dome like turn into a sky, I was like, oh man, this is like, oh, I feel like I'm in VR right now. And then a moment I was like, oh, this game would be really fun to play in VR until I realized the horrible motion sickness that you would suffer trying to handle like which way is up, which way is down, how do I survive? Um, so this was really neat and a good level. Thanks for calling that out because I completely forgot about this. Okay, all right, let's jump to the last thing that I wanted to talk about on my list before we jump into our next section. This is a little bit of the combat and the gunplay. This is kind of near the end of one of the levels where we're trying to get up to the top of this satellite system to, I think, send a message over what's been happening. We're trying to communicate back with the resistance fleet saying, hey, there's a super weapon that's being made. We got to turn the Halo off. I mean, the Arc. Sorry.
I think a Halo's a better name for it, honestly.
Yeah.
The fold weapon.
The fold weapon. There you go. But this is me interacting with BT.
Hell yeah.
So let me just be
What
quiet.
a hot streak.
Your vitals do not indicate a temperature problem. Do you wish for me to investigate this hot streak sensation further?
It's just an
I feel like the voice acting they had for BT as well was just perfect. Like,
Understood. I have
just the
added
perfect amount of like
hot streak to my vocabulary.
deadpan, dry humor,
I have had
and like
numerous hot
occasional like
streaks
cheekiness.
Oh yeah, it's great.
So,
I have added hot streak to my vocabulary. My records show that I have been on numerous hot streaks in the last
Yeah.
And there was so many other times where like I think you teach him how to give a thumbs up, which was another really good thing. And just like that interaction between the
How to
robot
joke.
and the pilot. Yeah, how to make a joke. Like that was a lot of fun. And I think that was an opportunity that they really capitalized on in the perfect amount. Like they didn't do it too much because too much it would have been a little kitschy, but they hit it just enough that every single time it happened I lost it. All right, so other clips or things that you guys want to show before we talk a little bit about what we liked, what we didn't, and give our final review. No? Well, if you think of something, we can always loop back. But let's start with you, Graves. Let's start at the bottom, and then we'll work our way up. Because you, despite the numerous good things, gave it a 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5. The thing is, I actually really like this game. I thought it was super fun. But I just have a lot of weird issues with it that makes it seem like it was such a disjointed thing. The campaign, at least, was just so disjointed on how they created it. The story was confusing. I thought the relationship between Cooper and BT was weird because it was like they tried to do a Master Chief Cortana relationship thing in a very, very short amount of time. I was kind of confused, and Bjorn mentioned that this is because he's a special Titan, but why the heck does BT have like this AI and nobody else seems to have it?
They all have it a little bit.
They all have it. The BT is the only. It's the first Titan that they produced themselves that they didn't stole.
Right. But I thought that was like the design necessarily, not necessarily the AI portion of it. I thought I would assume like they would have all had some kind of AI, but BT's like a human level AI and seems to learn and grow and stuff. And it just seemed really strange because they're supposed to be a part of the group that's not nearly as technically sound because they were like, oh, sorry. So yeah, I just thought they were. I don't know. That just seemed a little weird to me. It just kind of.
I believe it's a situation kind of like in Destiny where you never hear another ghost in the game speak, excluding one particular instance, and only your ghost ever speaks in the game. It's just a narrative bit.
That's
that
kind
They
of the
you-
vibe.
actually covered at the very, very beginning of the game. So
Did
the
they?
very
Okay.
opening cut screen, they talk about how the previous pilot for BT Lastimosa. So he was the pilot and had BT for 3 years, and so I think they argue that because the only pilot the only Titan that's been with someone for that long, that's why BT has a bit of a personality. It's because he's already been with someone and established that relationship
Mm.
and had time to like grow and learn. Whereas all the other ones, it's like, yeah, we mass produce this one, we throw a new one in and put it in a shell and ship it out, and then that person dies, and we grab the next one and move it down the line.
Gotcha. And I think it's a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
of both too, because what Cody was saying with like the neural link, that seems to be kind of like that connection, right? That's the part where you actually are part of the Titan's part of you. And that's why whenever you jump into the Titan, you get like that weird overlay in your eyes, presumably, because I don't think there's actually like screens inside of the Titan. I think it's just
I thought it was displayed on the entire inner surface. Is what it seemed like.
I was
Yeah,
I
getting
thought
the
it was
feel.
the pilot's helmet.
I figured it was projected, in the helmet.
Oh, that's right. Because you have to go find the pieces, and I think the helmet's one of the things you had to find, right?
Well,
The helmet that you get
the
as
helmet
soon
is-
as Lastimosa die.
Yeah.
Yeah, the helmet's
You
Alright.
pick up his suit.
Okay. Yeah.
But
So
I agree with you in that the relationship was pretty forced because, they get to be pretty buddy right off the bat, and it's like,
yeah, it's just the relationship of it. It just seemed too quick. Seemed a little weird to me, for especially how short the game was. I guess the things that I really liked were I loved the combat system. Just the running and jumping and stuff was really fun. There were a lot of different types of weapons, even though I kind of have an issue with like there seemed to be too much for a campaign, and you could kind of cheese your way through a lot of levels if you just had like any kind of sniper.
You can also just stealth and run a lot.
What's that?
You can also stealth and run a lot and skip
Yeah.
a lot of fights.
I completely forgot about the stealth thing quite a bit. It didn't seem to be. It was useful. It was just didn't use it a lot. There weren't a whole lot of scenarios where I needed to use that all the time. But the Titan was pretty cool, and I did enjoy the loadouts. Other than the fact that you could change the loadouts whenever you wanted, that seemed a little odd considering they were all like different guns and all different kind of different abilities. It didn't seem like it should have been something that you could just change in the middle of a level at any point, considering you're away from any kind of resources for such a long period of time through the story. But like major things that I didn't like were kind of the disjointed, like weird levels that didn't seem like they flowed together very well. It's kind of like listening to a comedian tell like us like go through his bit, and he just jumps from one scenario to another scenario without any kind of like lead in. It was just like listening to a guy say jokes instead of tell a story, which is what most comedy is like now. So it just
you said it, that picture made me picture it the best is that different teams worked on different levels, and then just
yeah.
you get left with a huge mess of different types of
Yeah, like that,
Really
like
fun.
the
Yes.
yeah, like the level that we just watched on the video there. Like it's a very cool level. I have no idea why they have this giant manufacturing for just that little thing. Like the place is huge, and they're building so many of those platforms, and that this is just to test their robots' AI. Like I thought they were like building like some kind of ship components, like internal ship rooms or something, and then it turns out to be this one little thing that at the very top they combine them together, and they're all being built exactly the same. So it's not like they're building a bunch of different layouts or anything. It seemed weird. Then you get like the Titan fights and the boss fights that were just boring, easy, sort of hard because you could die really easily if you weren't paying attention. But they weren't very challenging, and I almost felt stronger outside of my mech than I did in my mech.
That's a big point of contention, I would say. If you were getting that feel, then they definitely should have amped the mechs up even more because, I mean, you're in a giant Titan with a huge gun that you definitely shouldn't feel more
Yeah.
powerful outside of it.
Yeah, and the fact that like one level that the level where you are fighting with other Titans against a bunch of other like the enemy Titans. There's that one level where it's like you finally joined up with the rest of your military force, and you're just going through like slowly going through a wave of Titans. Not really that difficult. Like a lot of the Titans were being killed by your allied AI. It didn't like it wasn't very interesting compared to the other levels where you're on your own. Like those were super interesting. But there weren't anything like really in the Titan fights other than maybe the last one where you're on top of the ship fighting. That one was actually kind of fun to do. But I didn't really have any other spot where that was enjoyable, and it's supposed to be it's Titanfall. You would think that it's there'd be I don't know, more interesting levels and fights involved with the Titan. And then I have issue with one specific level. The level towards the end where you get captured, and then I can't remember exactly the scenario how it happens, but you end up getting BT ends up getting destroyed. But you take like his little CPU memory head, and you get like a gun and a knife or whatever, and you run around, and it's the auto targeting one.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like that should have been like, well, like a Halo level, like the very last Halo levels, where you're running from like explosion or something. I know you're escaping, but there's not anything trying to rush you, and all the combat is pretty much just auto kill. Like there's no challenge to the fight because everything's auto targeting. So it just seemed like they could have added something there that like it was a really cool moment, really kind of cool gameplay, or it could have been. But you could have just walked through it, and like there was nothing there trying to rush you. The ship wasn't like exploding around you or anything. There wasn't any difficult combat to do, so it was like pretty interesting, but it was kind of boring overall. And it was a cool concept with that kind of auto target, and you just pull the trigger and it shoots and kills everybody without you having to aim it.
I'll come back to the ending in my review points too, because there's something that I want to say, but I'll hold for my time there.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like it's a fun game. It has really fun mechanics, like the running around and jumping and stuff is really cool. And the gameplay was short. The story I didn't really buy into really well. They had some really cool just overall levels, and the concept of the levels and the way you had to proceed through them were really interesting, at least on some of them. But I don't know. It's like super enjoyable game. Just I don't think it was a fully complete game. It felt like it was half done.
Couple things that held you back. That's fair enough though, and it's like you said, there were a lot of really cool and interesting things that give it the.
But it doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't carry. To me, it doesn't carry the game. It's almost like this is just a slightly better version of the campaign in the second one versus the first one. But it was still like let's just throw a campaign in there.
Makes sense.
And God, I was so confused about that. Well, not totally confused about the story. Just like seemed strange. Like the whole process of you fighting against these mercenaries, and the mercenaries are basically they're mercenaries. They're mercenaries.
Yeah, that's their deal though. That's actually where the Apex Legends come from. Is the group of mercenaries.
But they're mercenaries, and they're basically just getting a weapon for a guy who's like a evil villain.
He's a James Bond villain.
Character.
He's a James
Exactly.
Bond. You don't see him. He doesn't do anything, but he's bad and he's evil, and we don't like him.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be like this world government against like worlds, like a group of people that went and settled a planet, and now the world government's coming to take over, and they were trying to fight back. That's at least what I had gathered from the first game, and I assume that's what was going on in this one too. But you get this James Bond villain who ends up, I thought was supposed to be like the world government or whatever, and they have mercenaries doing all this stuff, and it was just, I don't know, it seemed like a weird concept.
It was peculiar. So next is the other side of the spectrum, our highest ranking from Goose with a 9 out of 10.
So I really like Titanfall. I pushed really hard to play this game for a while for the Games Club just because it is one of those gems that slips through a crack. And I think there's a lot of things it does well and things it does well that current games that are still coming out do poorly. And you can tell that when it comes out, it's like, okay, we're going to release essentially the exact same mechanics in a brand new game, and it still seems fresh and new for so many people. Because if you've played the game, the gun names don't even change in most cases between Apex Legends and Titanfall 2. But I really just appreciate the game does a lot of things very, very well, and then it's just so disjointed in other little points, as it was previously pointed out. But just like the combat feels so smooth. I think part of the problem if you're playing through it, play it on the hardest difficulty, because if you're playing it on anything less than that, it's just too easy. I mean, after you figure out how to wall run and you're not falling to your death half the time, it's literally just, oh, there's one guy who takes one bullet. But if you play under the hardest difficulty, the robot guys you fight throughout most of the fights that shoot the little red balls from the L stars, a full like burst of that, like a 5-round burst of that, if you get hit by all 5, you die. And those come at you pretty quick in a row. So it makes it a lot more challenging. You have to actually play and think, okay, what am I going to do here? How can I use these grenades? How can I get around? How can I maneuver around? Cloaking feature becomes so much more important. Making sure you know where your enemies are and maneuvering around them. Because the fastest way to die in this game is to stand still. If you're running around, if you're wall running and jumping from place to place, the enemies don't track you as well, and they'll always shoot behind you if you're moving faster than a certain pace. So if you can just keep in the air and keep mobile, you're never going to get hit. But when you're playing under that hardest difficulty, it makes all the Titan sections seem so much more fun. Because you go from like, I'm this little glass jar to, hey, I'm a big badass and a robot, and I'm going to wreck some fools. That being said, I do think a lot of the boss fights were either really, really easy or really, really hard, especially if you're playing with the hardest difficulty. If you remember towards the very end, you have to fight a boss while you're on top of a ship, and he's flying, and he has a sniper rifle, and there's a couple of little guys that drop in front of you. I watched Nate fight that when he was on stream. It probably took him like 4 or 5 tries.
Yep.
And I think I probably did it like 25 times before I beat it, just because he'd hit you with one shot, and that's your entire shield and 1 health bar. And the next time he fires again, that's 2 more health bars and 1 more shot, and you're dead. And it's like, okay, I have to kill this guy who I'm doing no damage to. So there are parts like that that are kind of frustrating. But I think individually, there's so many little components to this game that are so fun. The wall running mechanics, the awesome platforming, the fact there were sometimes noticeable puzzles. The story is lackluster, I'll admit to that. But it's a fun game that you can beat for like $5 in an afternoon and have a great time doing it. I really think that you have to try to 100% it to get the most out of the story. So you have to go around and hunt for all of the helmets, all of the audiobook cues that got to tell you more of the background and the story. Because those really do add a lot of depth to a pretty minimal background. If you just play through without looking for any of that stuff, you're going to be like, I don't know why I'm here, but there's bad guys this way, so I'm going to go kill in that direction. And you just repeat that process till you get to the end of the map. One thing that they did do for the development of this game that I appreciated is they followed like a 2-1-1 strategy. So for every 2 instances of combat, they wanted to have 1 instance of like platforming and like jumping around and being mobile, and another instance of like puzzle solving, like how do I do X, Y, or Z. And I appreciate that they put thought in that. It's like, hey, we don't have to have just a game where you run in a straight line and shoot, but we can also be like, how can we make you think about this? How can we make it so you have to look at this in a slightly different way? And I really appreciate that about a game where it's like, mobility is so important. It's like, let's use that to the best of our ability to make these features as useful as possible, versus where it's like, there's a time travel feature, but we never use it because it wasn't fun. It's like, no, you have to use it, and they make it in a fun and enjoyable way to actually play around with that. So those are a lot of things I think the game did really well. It is too short. I'll agree to that. I think I beat it in an afternoon. I sent a message to the group and said, starting the game, worked a full day, beat the game, and then sent a message that night. It was like, okay, I'm done. So it is too short, but I could definitely play more. If they make a third one, I'm definitely going to buy it.
I definitely think that what you said there with the shining examples of things it does well, they really do come through. And I think Cody would probably agree with me. 8 out of 10. Cody, any additional stuff you want to add on why you enjoyed it so much, or what maybe lost at the 2 points?
Well, I would say a large part of the reason I gave it an 8 is just how much of an upgrade it is over the original. I played the original Titanfall back when it first came out, and I enjoyed the gameplay quite a bit. And they retained the really good parts of that, the smooth running through the environment, the high speed shooter mechanics, and then they just improved upon them. They added a story that was actually, a story, not just multiplayer matches that happen to have dialogue going on in the background. They also improved upon the existing shooter mechanics, adding new little bits and pieces here and there that just made it more interesting than it had been before. However, while they did add a story mode, it's a Call of Duty type story mode. It's, pretty short, basically just introduces you to the mechanics of the game, and then you're off to multiplayer.
Fair enough. I think all great points. Anything else you want to throw in before we jump to, I think,
No,
Jesters
it's
is
good.
next. Yeah, Jesters, you're up.
So yeah, I've never played the Titanfall one, but I really I've been recommended this game by a lot of people, and it was a great experience. I didn't get the story. I did enjoy the story, not like Graves. I didn't feel lost. I thought it was cohesive and everything. I really liked the story. The only thing I didn't like I really didn't like, is the fact that it's really just to move around, get comfortable with the gameplay, and then go play multiplayer. That's how I feel the whole campaign. I feel like it's a missed opportunity to do. It could be, honestly, with all the thing they did so well in this game, they could have made a completely single player game, and it would be hours and hours of fun just with the gameplay. Like it's so nice just to wall run and jump and puzzle, and everything is really really cool. But yeah, I feel like they only did it just to show off and just practice before you can do multi. So
I think I've played Final Fantasy games with longer tutorials than Titanfall 2.
yeah, sounds about right.
Very
Yeah.
true.
So I'm very disappointed about the length of it, but the overall experience, I would, if they get another one out, I'll probably buy it just because it's a really fun game with good mechanics and solid gameplay. So
Definitely.
love it. I
Bjorn,
really like the couple different not dungeon, but levels as well. The one with the time travel is pretty cool. Everything seems cool, but like the rest, it seems a bit rushed. Like it just seems like we could do that, but we didn't because the main focus of the game is multiplayer. So sad. But anyways, it's overall a really solid game.
Bjorn Bongiorno.
I really don't know what else to say. Everybody's said pretty much everything. And honestly, the game was very good. If they made a third one, I would buy it. And I agree that the game is very short, but the hallmark moments for me in the game outweigh the length. And if you want to, it's a game that's very fun to replay just to try to go very fast and just speed through the levels. So that's where the replay value comes in for me, I think. A little bit more than the length of the campaign, but it's a short game. I got to be honest. So that's probably what lost the 2 points for me. I let Graves get to me a little bit on that. I wanted to give it an 8.59, and then
I think that's fair though.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought so
especially realistically, if you bought this on release and you were looking for a single player game, I would be disappointed I spent $60 for what you get out of the single player
Oh
game.
yeah, it's a great game for $10. Like it's an amazing game for $10.
I don't know how they marketed it when it came out, but if it was marketed as a single player campaign, that's a scam.
Yeah, that's fair. I think.
That's definitely.
Yeah, it probably wasn't marketed that way, considering the first one really wasn't marketed at all as a single player campaign. It's more of a multiplayer thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, if you're gonna put a good story in, you might as well put a really good story.
If you're looking for a multiplayer game, the campaign is a really nice bonus on top of it.
Yeah.
If you're looking for single player, it's this.
Well, the interesting thing is, it's not like, I mean, Respawn is the studio that made this, but the publishing company we all know and absolutely love is EA. So it's not like they had a shortage of funds to put this out there. I mean, the original Titanfall, they pretty much set up as a system seller. They had bundles for Titanfall. They got people into it. But
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like
So-
other than the fact that there was a bundle, the original one was sold the exact same way. Like it was like, hey, there's this cool game, you should check it out. Full stop. It's called Titanfall. That's it.
So to put
Um,
things in perspective, Titanfall 2 released after Battlefield 1 and right before Call of Duty Infinite Warfare.
Oh, yeah,
Like
that
in
was
October.
rough
So within a
spot.
month of both of those, it dropped.
Rough.
So that's
spot.
why it's like, yeah, you're not going to do so hot because, like, okay, it was the fourth selling game of
Right
release this
after-
week after Skyrim Special Edition, FIFA, Battlefield 1.
That's all EA games. All
you
of
can't
those.
follow any Skyrim game.
Actually-
FIFA, Battlefield. What's the other one you said?
Modern Warfare.
Skyrim, Modern Warfare,
Well,
Infinite Warfare.
Battlefield and FIFA are both EA. Do
Mhm.
you want to advertise another shooter, another multiplayer? Well, one of
To
your
be
biggest
fair, I don't think
franchises
FIFA
just
is a
came
big
out.
competition for this game.
Well,
If
that's
you
an
like
interesting-
FIFA, you're not.
No, but Battlefield 1. Or
yeah,
not one,
Battlefield 1 definitely.
all the same, that's an interesting point because those are all EA games. I mean, if
Why would they
if I was
release
EA,
that?
why would I release those 3 games within
They-
4 months of each other? Like,
They did the
Yeah.
same thing with Apex Legends right now with the other Battlefield. Their Battlefield right now is tanking because Apex Legends is doing so good.
Yeah, they just released Firestone. That's
It's a good thing for a bad thing. They're being so successful, but their franchise is just eating it.
They're free to play games doing better than their paid game.
yeah.
So unfortunate.
So I think
Yeah.
I just want to echo some of the awesome points that we brought up. This game for $5, $10, up to $20 is well worth it for the experience. It's quick, which is a blessing and a curse. Nowadays, it's hard for us to find 20 hours to sink into a campaign. I actually kind of like that I could beat this in 1.5 weekends. That was a cool thing, but it also left me wanting more. I was disappointed because I didn't get everything that I wanted out of the game. The time travel mechanic, we already mentioned it earlier, but that is a whole game in its own. I would play an entire 10-hour long campaign where that is used, and you use it for platforming and puzzle solving and combat, and maybe you
They need
throw
to
in a
add
couple of
that.
elements.
They need to add that game mode into Apex Legends. Just
Yeah.
have a specific game mode for that. That'd be crazy.
It would. I mean, it would be absolutely crazy to see a multiplayer version of that because it is so unique and just fun. I mean, it's just so much fun to do. So many times when I was playing this game, the enjoyment for me would shift because I would be wall running and I would say, okay, this is the best part of the game. And then while I was wall running, I would launch off, punch a guy out, pull my gun up and shoot 2 more people, and I was like, no, wait, it's the gunplay that's the best part of this game. And then I'd go off wall running again, and it does both the gunplay and the movement so well that those systems, the real shame is that they don't use them to their full potential. They don't have as much content as they could for what they've built in their system. So I think that you guys are right in that the second one has a better campaign than the first one because the first one almost didn't have any campaign. So hopefully the third one, they'll keep the same fluid system, they'll improve a couple things, and then it will have a full-fledged, we're talking Halo 3, Halo 2 level campaign where it's pretty clearly laid out. It doesn't have to be overly complex. We don't need to combine multiple elements. Just set one simple story and let us have so much fun with the things that they built.
They built a third one. It's called Apex Legends.
Yeah. That was
So
They're
there's
not going to
actually
make
a-
another.
There's
Halo's a
theory.
good comparison because they already have the lore, they have everything. They could make a solid game out of it.
Oh yeah. Well, especially since they left the ending pretty open, since BT's not dead.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the 2 things that I wanted to say that brought the game down just a little bit for me. The shortness of it and the ending. Oh boy. So I don't want to spoil the ending specifically.
Why not?
It's
But
a game that's 3
basically,
years old and costs $5. I think
I
you can
know.
spoil a little bit. If you don't like
Basically-
spoilers,
Go for it, go
stop
for it.
listening here.
you're setting out to destroy this ultimate weapon, the fold weapon. I was so confused with the ending of this game because there's a boss fight going on while you're also supposed to be stopping the weapon, right? So I would the first time I tried, I would fight the boss for a little bit and I would go over and try and rip the cover off of this cannon thing that was firing stuff into the fold weapon, or it was the fold weapon, I'm not really sure. And then I would
So that
get
was
stuck
the
pulling this
arc.
thing down. and then I would get shot and get killed because I couldn't stop pulling. Like I couldn't exit my animation. All right, so I was like, okay, I got to kill the boss first. So I go to kill the boss, and then I go to rip this thing off and like destroy the fold weapon, and it I guess it goes off or it fires or something happens, and the game is like, oh no, like sequence termination, everything is going wrong, and the game is over, you've lost. But then I get in the cannon and it fires me into the fold weapon, and apparently I still somehow stop it. I it seemed
So
like something happened where like the sequence happened and the game is over and the weapon destroys the planet. But then I still somehow managed to save the planet, and that was just a very confusing thing for me. I wasn't really sure exactly what happened, but all of a sudden the credits are rolling, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess we win. And
Yeah,
that
let's
alone
back that
was
up.
like not a
There's
great
two
feeling.
things there.
Yeah,
So
go for it, Goose.
there's the glowy orb is the arc. That's basically like the nuclear fuel to the bomb. The arc is the big spinny, like the discs that are the round rings that were all spinning together. That's the fold weapon itself. The arc is just a little glowing ball. So think of that as like the fuel to the cannon, essentially, or whatever
Okay.
we're going to call it. And so essentially you're like, oh, we're just going to set the fuel off early. So instead of getting pointed in a direction and shot, it just goes off right here. And that's why it totals the planet. But they actually show in the game, it's like, hey, there's a moon up above the planet that's destroyed because they tested the fold weapon on the moon of this planet and it's just like crushed. So it has something to do with like crushing space and time. And it's like, oh, we're just going to create a little bloop here and suddenly there's a black hole. And now everything is all messed up.
Okay. So yeah, even like your explanation, I'm still kind of sitting over here shrugging a little bit. So
Yeah.
it's like they could have done just a little bit better of a job, not
Mhm.
gone full Deus Ex Machina, and either let the thing happen, blow up the planet. Oh no, you didn't make it in time, or don't have the thing happen and let me save the Earth and like not have this weird kind of in between state. So that was a little bit confusing and muddled, and right at the end, it kind of left just a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, especially because the last fight was a Titan fight, and when I was in the Titan, I didn't have as much fun as when I was outside of the Titan, just because the movement and the clunkiness of it. Well, it was fun to kind of be a weapon of just this destructive force. I didn't get the same enjoyment out of being in the Titan as I did running through the world. So
Same
those
here.
things alone kind of brought the game down just a little bit for me. But don't let me leave you guys on a bad note, because overall our score as an average was like 8 out of 10. We had a couple of outliers, but but this game is well worth it for 5, 10, 15, $20. I think that it's worth picking up. And with that, let's go into our last words. We don't have a game picked for next month just yet. We're going to talk about it. We're going to take input from you guys. If you guys have any suggestions, hit me up on Twitter, send them in the chat. Maybe
Bless you.
lean on these guys here, because we got to pick something for next month. So I would say, as our outro, if you guys have any good suggestions, witty one-liners, BT lines that you want to throw out there, now's your chance. We're gonna go down the line and we're gonna wrap it up. Goose.
So real quick, I remember we talked about how there's only two right now and there's Apex. But if you look at the dates on the pistols, the worst, most basic pistol in the game, Titanfall 1, it was the P2011. That's when Titanfall 1 was generated. Titanfall 2 was the P2016. In Apex Legends, there's a P2020. So just go ahead and think on that one for a minute
That is
and wonder what's going to drop.
Apex Legends 2.
Confirmed.
Goose.
Apex Legends 2, I didn't think of that.
We should have let you go last. That was phenomenal. That's a great exiting line. All right, Parias.
I'm just looking forward to the next outing with Cooper and the Straight Man.
Jesters.
Yeah, about the same. I mean, I can't wait for the 2020 now, apparently.
There you go, Bjorn.
Your comment about Portal made me want to play Portal again.
Hey, I mean it would be a good Games Club game. Graves.
Oh my day.
Now I understand why they didn't put Titans in Apex Legends, because fighting in Titans suck.
Fair enough. I'm going to end by thanking you guys all for joining us. No, we're not going to say subscribe to PewDiePie. Subscribe to Maverick instead.
And PewDiePie.
And PewDiePie, yeah, you can do both. But if you get here, you can get the Loose Goose, the Maverick emote, and if you're feeling especially generous, the Crazy Callie. All generated from our friends here within the Discord and the Games Club. So once more, thank you guys all for joining. We really appreciate having you here. and hopefully we see you guys in a month or so. You know, you never know. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.